Ah, oh, we back. Oh, we've been blessed with another one. We are back with another one, and another one, and another one. You cannot escape. You're on mute. You're on mute. So you're not even here yet. You're on mute.
Hey, listen, because I gotta watch what I say, because the people gonna be like, I need to hear from Rob and Jamal this week.
Yeah. I
What
don't
you
know,
think?
man.
What you think they thinking?
I don't know what they thinking, but I'm not let you. You're not about to suck me in today. No.
You say that every week.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's why I don't tell you nothing ahead of time. Hey, folks, I don't tell him nothing ahead of time unless it's absolutely necessary. You know what I'm
I
saying?
fall and I fall into the trap.
You can't give Rob too much time to think.
Yo, man, you can't do me like that. You can't do
Huh?
me like that. You can't do me like that.
Oh, say that again.
You can't do me like that, man. You can't do me like that.
Listen, man. I mean, there's people who are smart and intelligent, right? And then there's you. You know what I'm saying? Then there's you. And then there's you, man. We talking, you know what I mean?
Oh man.
Intellect, smarts, wit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I can't put you in a bubble like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm only protecting you from yourself. What's
Oh
good, man?
man, bro, I'm good. I'm excited, excited. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing
How you
well.
doing?
I'm
Yeah,
doing well, man. Out
awesome.
here. Out here it's allergy season. That's about it. You know what
Your
I'm saying?
allergies is on your mind, man. It's all in your mind.
In my nose and in my eyes as well.
Yeah, man. Listen, you got to tell yourself, if you believe, you can achieve. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. A lot going on this week, man.
there's a lot.
You know
There's a
what I'm
lot.
saying?
Yeah, I don't know where you want to take it, how you want to do it, but when you say there's a lot, there is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot going on this week, you know what I mean? Um, we might as well just get it on out the way.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you're talking about, but oh yeah, let's
Yeah,
let's get it on out the way, whatever
let's get
that
it on out
means.
the way. Let's get it on out the way.
Okay, what we got?
Uh,
What we got?
it never fails, right? What I think and what we think we should talk about, right? And let's put it like I want to put it like this. The aspect of corporate trauma that we anticipate that we may want to talk about.
Yep,
It's always something in popular culture, news, current events
week to
that
week.
we do. People think
Yep,
I'm not making this stuff up,
yeah,
right? And
yep.
hopefully tonight y'all will believe us when we connect the dots in a few minutes.
You gotta share that to on Facebook. I don't
Yeah,
think it's up
it's
there.
huh?
I don't think it's up there yet. But okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. It'll be.
Oh, all
It
right,
will be.
yeah,
It will be. Yep.
got you.
Thank you for that. But check it out though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Week to week. So hopefully we can connect the dots, right?
We're gonna connect the dots
We're
like
gonna
that.
connect the
That's
dots
fine.
because it definitely correlates, right?
Yep.
So corporate trauma, if y'all haven't figured out yet, right, you can lay it over as a transparency right over top of anything in life, right?
Hmm.
The pattern of behavior that we define as corporate trauma, um, that comes out of
Hmm.
the symptoms: fear, stress, anxiety, anger, 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 right? Say that one three times. Frustration, depression and cognitive dissonance um, with related to what you do as a professional or in the workplace, even as an independent contributor. You may even categorize yourself as an employee right now, right? There's a there's certain experiences that could lead into this pattern that we call corporate trauma that
Mm-hmm.
dictates behavior until where you create a persona to survive at work, right? Instead of thrive altogether, integrating what you do as a professional and who you are as an individual who
Mm-hmm.
has a job to contribute your gift to the world, right? And trying to figure this out and people taking advantage of that along the way induces what we call corporate trauma. And they're after effects. There are things that happen. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certain aspects under the corporate trauma umbrella that we talk about, as y'all already know, week to week, day to day almost. And we bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's one story, sometimes it's several.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it's just subject matter that's too big to to encapsulate in one conversation. We try our best when we have
Mm-hmm.
guests. We try our best when it's just me and Rob. We try our best. But daggone it, if Sunday night at the Oscars didn't stand out and stick out like a sore thumb, or as my man Javier used to say, a turd in the punch bowl, right?
Just floating.
Just
Just
flow,
floating.
bro, and excuse our crass and crudeness, right? But like I don't know how else to say it. The Will Smith and Chris Rock um incident,
Ooh.
and I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of both,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Same.
Um, and I love what both men and their uh, rise in the entertainment industry and how it impacted, my childhood and adolescence,
Mm-hmm.
teenage years, adolescence, and young adulthood, right? I still
Yeah.
consider myself a very young individual. You know what I'm saying? But Chris Rock and the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, I'm talking about Pookie from New Jack City. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Lowry, right?
My Larry. Yep.
Right. Like I don't you if they selling tickets, I'm paying, right?
Yep.
Either I'm renting Bad Boys Forever on Prime Video, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? If they put it out, I'm gonna watch it, right? Because of their growth, who they are, what they mean to the
Mm-hmm.
culture, what they mean to my personal development, watching them,
Mm-hmm.
what they mean to, like, I mean, man, the stuff they was saying and stuff they was doing and stuff they was wearing, we took it right off of the, the big screen. We took it right off of the TV screen and implemented it into our everyday life, right? Um, so first, let me say personally, I was very, very, very hurt by the incident, and uh, I won't say I was embarrassed, um, right? But I was disappointed, very disappointed that there was a public display of what took place between them two. Um, both
Yep.
were typical confident bulls aggressing one another, one in one form and one in the other. And we're not here
Mm-hmm.
to talk about, who was right, who was wrong, what they deserve. And we're not going to talk about the politics, right? The disrespect of women of color, black women in particular, because we've dealt with that subject matter thoroughly
Mm-hmm.
through
Mm-hmm.
our podcast series, and we've had so many wonderful and incredible black women and women of color on here to talk about the different aspects of corporate trauma. Um, But man, you know, what happened between them two people say, you know, one was wrong, Gerd and the other one, and it all, everything that happened goes with the territory
Hmm.
because you're a celebrity. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's their job, Rob,
Correct.
right? It's their job. And the incident stems from the personal impact that their jobs have on their lives.
Boom.
That's corporate trauma, bro.
Hmm.
I mean, we stretching it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it fits like hand in glove. What say you?
Um, no, it makes sense though, right? Because ultimately, what you're expected to be able to accept is based on people who don't have to accept it,
Oof.
right? And what does that mean? You make millions of dollars and you dribble a basketball, someone feels like they can talk to you any old type of way, right? You dribble a basketball, you shouldn't talk about social issues, right? The idea that you entertain or you get paid to portray a certain personality to people, you end up losing. People take away your humanity. And the crazy part about it, you can have people who get paid more than you, but are not in the same industry, who people don't pull that with,
Mm.
right? Prime example, and maybe it could be a thing around race, because you can have someone who's getting paid $50 million a year and they work at a big bank or they work at a logistics company, and nobody thinks that someone should be able to come to their office and talk to them any old type of way. But if you put a jersey on, if you're a rapper, if you're a singer, if if you're a comedian, whatever the case may be, which is a lot of the places that we show up in, people feel like you're not human and more or less you're in the arena fighting for your life. And it's on them to decide whether or not you live, right? And in that piece, I'm just getting that just from listening to what you shared, right? And people have a difficult time with that
Yep.
because you paid your $400 to get a seat for you and your lady at this event. That gives you the right to talk to me in all type of way. Or better yet, because you're the star and I'm coming to see you, that gives you the right to talk to me in all type of way. Now, I'll share kind of how I feel about the situation. Um, you don't know what you don't know, but that doesn't stop you from having to pay the consequences, right? You should know better when you don't know, but and that will not stop you from paying the consequences. If Chris Rock thought he was gonna get smacked on Sunday, Chris Rock either would have been ducking or he wouldn't have said the joke. But things happen for a reason, and to be honest with you, there's a bigger lesson here than there is for those two, right? Be conscious of how you move when you're talking about people and their health and situations that they can't control,
Mm.
right? Those are the things that we lose at times.
Right.
It's one thing if it's something that I can control. It's one thing even if it was something that I did, right? But there's also a place where you just have to realize maybe I shouldn't tread here. Maybe I shouldn't walk here, right? That's for Chris Rock. but there's also a level of control. And I want to make sure for people who are listening, they understand this piece. Standing up for your wife, your family members, got it. But when we start to lose control, because sometimes that's the difference, the control is usually the piece. Because when we losing control, that means we can do things that we will soon regret.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Means
the
stuff.
crazy thing is, right? Because the crazy thing is, he could have did a number of different things to show that what Chris Rock was talking about wasn't wasn't good, wasn't right, wasn't cool with him and his lady.
Right.
But somehow, whether it's all the things combined, somehow let me put my hands on you was the best thing that he can come up with. And I am one person who is very wary, aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
I am careful what I condone
Yep.
because we have to be realistic. A smack from Will Smith is a knife and a gunshot from someone else.
There we go.
And you got to be able to process that in the moment. Oh, you can't control your emotions in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have lost loved ones because someone felt like they couldn't control their emotions in the moment.
That's right.
And that is not to say he shouldn't stand up for his wife. But if we keep talking about, oh, sometimes you can't control your emotions, you know who else can't control their emotions? And this is something that my aunt taught me. She said only dogs get mad. Animals can't control themselves.
Mm.
And so at the end of the day, being able to process these emotions, those are the things that save our lives. Because this whole thing could have ended up being worse than what we saw,
Absolutely.
right? It could have been a situation he gets kicked off the stage and breaks his neck, right? He turns his back, not a care in the world, gets kicked off the stage by Chris Rock, and break his neck.
Mm-hmm.
He
Anything.
could have he could have smacked Chris Rock to the ground, and Chris Rock falls and is paralyzed, right? So I'm stretching it, but these things happen,
They happen every day.
and we got to be conscious of the same way folks got out here and said how Donald Trump handled certain things, and would that be acceptable for your kids, or how you would operate in the workplace? Like, we have to be able to look at it the same way,
Right. Right.
because you can't control how the person. Only when we condone it, then that means we also condone how other people move, and we just may not like what they do. So to be clear, he should protect his wife. That's their relationship.
Right.
That's a part of his job. The same way it's a part of her job. And Jamal, this is something that I read.
Uh-huh.
Someone shared this on a post on Facebook. Yep, all women want to be protected by the person that they're with. But when is it your job to protect him from
Right.
doing something that will harm him?
Right.
And in that moment, you know what would have been even possibly even more powerful?
What's
If
that?
as he's about to go up there, she grabs his arm.
Right. I
He
read
tries
that.
to he tries to wiggle a little bit,
Yeah.
and then she say, "It's okay,"
Right.
and he sits down.
Yep.
And the gesture alone would have been powerful,
Absolutely. I
right?
read
The
that.
gesture alone would reverberate. Now, maybe we wouldn't have all the memes.
Right.
Maybe it wouldn't be on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, Fox News. It wouldn't be in all these places,
Right.
because that's not the narrative people want to push
Right.
about us. But what it would have done, it would have reminded people of what's not acceptable. And that moment may have been missed in the midst of we lose control. I
Absolutely.
ended there. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, beautiful point, man. Control. Right. Um, because we've talked about on this show before. Uh, Emotions are part of life, but
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't be controlled by them. We should be guided by them through the process of rising above them into a higher level of consciousness, right? That's what some of the solutions of corporate trauma, directly speak to. And we Monday morning quarterback in this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want anybody out there to get us wrong, right? We're not passing judgment on Will
Mm-hmm.
or Chris, right? Because quite frankly, we are not qualified to even pass judgment on ourselves, much less somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's right, there's wrong, and there's the interpretation and perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one thing that I will take away from this, because coming from where you and I come from, Rob,
Yep.
we know how these same situations have turned deadly.
Ugly. And
Very
people forgetting that.
Yeah, same scenario. It may not be two millionaires. It may not be on TV, but it could be, two thousandaires standing on, whatever community block that they from, and something
Mm-hmm.
similar happens, and people are making permanent decisions for temporary problems, and then now, we get news that we don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one thing that I do want to pull and highlight that correlates to the corporate trauma experience is the beauty in conflict resolution. Now they what you were talking about was the conflict mediation that could have happened and would have been a powerful statement. Now we missed that.
Mm-hmm.
There was no mediation, right? I don't know where security was. I don't know. Camera didn't pan to anybody down there in close proximity to the incident to see if anybody had reacted.
Nobody.
I mean, but it's safe to say that both guys are really charismatic and funny. That people were probably either expecting it was a skit or a joke, or that was the last thing that was going to happen that was probably on people's minds.
Yeah.
At any rate, right? No judgment. We missed the step of conflict mediation,
Mm-hmm.
but the growth and the maturity in the conflict resolution that I have briefly read on behalf of both men in this situation, right?
Chris Rock said something.
Yeah. I read something where he apologized for his part in it.
Mm.
And CNN tonight, just because he's in Boston tonight, first leg of his new tour, or he's still, he's still processing
Oh.
that show in Boston.
Ha, ha,
The
ha,
comedian
ha,
says he's
ha.
still processing what happened at Sunday's Awards. He's still processing.
Yep.
So, man, that's the part that
Still
we
gotta go to
don't
work.
unfortunately get to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
not only is the aggrieved parties impacted, the individuals around them are also pulled into a situation where they are now, I'm backing my man up. I'm backing,
Yep.
I'm picking a side. But
Mm-hmm.
when things get out of control
Mm-hmm.
and the two immediate and aggrieved parties decide to apologize to one another and, for lack of a better phrase, kiss and make up, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
move on, that diffuses the inner circles. That diffuses a situation, right? That could and would in fact get worse. So, and this is what does not happen within the corporate industrial complex, right? Because people's jobs at times of conflict, when conflict mediation and conflict resolution, even in the workplace, is not handled properly, right? Bridges are burned. People are left with bad taste in their mouth, and have invested years and time and effort, sweat equity into a business, into projects, into initiatives. And because of a conflict, with one or more parties within their place of employment or within their client base or whatever circle they may be facilitating their service in, right? You lose all of that progress and have to end up starting over scratch, start from scratch somewhere else with your reputation, with your time, with your ability to persuade and build social credibility in a place where now your value is highly evaluated. You know what I'm saying? To give um, yourself the career and professional leverage that everybody seeks. You know what I'm saying? So shout, hats off to what we see even early. I mean, today is, it's early in the week um, after this incident. However, it's only a few days removed from this incident, but shout out to both men and their uh, initial attempts at conflict resolution um, in order to have a semblance of moving on from this whole thing. And what a great segue into what we're going to talk about tonight, right? Last week, man, we had a great conversation. Um, Me and Rob had a great conversation last week with respect to the corporate bully, right? Somebody with authority or influence and has the ability to make life miserable for you in a way where you may not be able to respond. And the example we used last week was the incident of somebody popping into a meeting and trying to take control of your meeting because of their purview on the subject matter that you may be discussing, right? And if that's not clear to you, probably tune into last week's, or not last week's, but week before last conversation. This week, I want to talk about, we're going to switch and we're going to transition from the corporate bully to the corporate monster. The corporate monster and the importance of controlling your own narrative. Now, what do we mean by the corporate monster, right? And the importance of controlling your own narrative. Well, there are situations where you, as a professional or as an individual, might be put in a situation where the story, the the chronology, the version and perception of performance or incidents at work is not controlled by you, and the narrative is spun, or the narrative is exaggerated, or the narrative is pulled out of context in order to control you, the professional, in a way that is counterproductive and negative to your career trajectory, because somebody or somebody's, more than one person, is attempting to make you out to be the boogeyman, the monster, right? The bad guy in the situation. Because that
Mm-hmm.
narrative, what people are saying about you when you're not around is
Mm-hmm.
almost as important as what they say about you when you are in the room,
When you are
right?
around. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've been in situations, Rob, where I've been the monster.
Oh, you have? No way. No
No,
way.
I'm telling you,
Not you.
I was in a situation where I was hired by an executive leader.
Mm-hmm.
They got promoted and pulled away from the area of business that I was employed in, and their heir apparent and I didn't see things the same way, and we weren't on the same page, and we weren't
Mm-hmm.
aligned. And the the executive leader who hired me was pulled back in, right, to mediate. And mediation, if y'all are familiar with mediation, mediation is usually a person of respect to both parties, speak to them individually, and then pull them into a space where they can now speak collectively in order to impact some type of resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one-on-one that I had with the executive leader who hired me, who knew me and the other person very well. Matter of fact, this individual hired us both. The narrative that I was faced with, wow, Jamoul, since I was gone, it seems like it's everybody hates Jamoul, pun intended, like the TV show, everybody hates Chris,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like everybody hates Jamoul down there. What's
Mm-hmm.
going on?
What's going
And
on?
and I'll be honest, I was I was really, really unsettled by the fact that the narrative about me outside of me had reached a person of consequence that I respected, and that person was pulled in to mediate what was probably more or less a juvenile situation that didn't even add up mathematically, right? So,
Mm.
I'll be a little bit more detailed. This particular leader had been gone and promoted a month, and within a month's time, my performance went from on par, right, to terrible as far as the narrative is concerned. And in the line of work I was doing, it's just not possible to go from good to terrible in 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
unlikely. But the and I think the leader knew that that's not likely, right? It's not that Jamoul is not showing up to work and he's coming in late or leaving early or not doing anything. It's the interest was, why is the word out on him so negative,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, yo, they have painted me into a monster. And I have to blame myself a lot for that, right? Because I wasn't as savvy as a professional to protect my narrative in that type
Mm-hmm.
of way, right? And I want to talk about a few ways that we could do that. But the corporate monster and the importance of controlling. You used the word control several times. Controlling
Mm-hmm.
your own narrative. How does that hit you?
Yeah. The biggest thing when we talk about your narrative is realizing that perception is reality, especially when you're dealing with other people who have a say so on your career and on your life. Now, some people say, "Well, Rob, perception isn't reality. That's just crazy." And in this absolute sense, no, it's not. Right? What people believe and what they think about you, when it's wrong, it's wrong. But when it comes down to people being able to do something to you based on their perception, that's just as real as it being true, right? And it's so often when we're thinking about our narrative, for some reason we come up with this idea of it doesn't matter what people think.
Right.
If somebody thinks you're a criminal, even though you're not a criminal, if they treat you as a criminal, that means for them, your treatment is based upon how they feel about you. It may never be you, but that's how they feel. So what you receive from them is exactly what a criminal would get. If someone looks at you, and I'll go deeper. A whole entire system was built on believing that indigenous people, primarily black people, were not human or were less than human. And as you perpetuate that system, there was a reality created in those who benefited from that system. The reality wasn't true in the minds of the black people, but it was as true as the sky is blue for those who were white or ethnically from different parts of Europe or Eurasia or whatever the case may be. So, how people, what your narrative is, right? You got your narrative and how people perceive it. And our job is to figure out how do we make sure that both of those things are the same everywhere we go. Oh, I don't care what people think. Don't care what people think and be arrested tomorrow. Don't care what people think and get kicked out your house tomorrow, right? People who don't who don't have to who don't have to be concerned with what other people think are the people who control the system. You don't even see them. The people who control the laws and the people who don't even have to come out their houses to live.
Right.
They're not concerned, right? So for me, when I'm thinking about controlling my narrative, the first thing is to be aware of what my narrative is. What is it to me? And then what is it perceived to be by other people? And how far apart of those things? How far apart? Are they close? Are they super far apart? Like, what is it? Where are we? And if they're close, our job is to make sure that they stay there.
Right. Right.
And people be trying to figure out, how do I keep getting fired from a job? Because the narrative that you have in your head is not the narrative that's perceived by the people you work with.
Right.
It can be two different things. Sort of like if you go home and you're talking to your mom about how you doing in school, and oh yeah, I'm doing awesome in school, everything's going well. Well, you might be doing well in the class, but your behavior is crap. Like something's off,
Right.
right? And sometimes we put more weight on the things that we do well, that we care about, but that doesn't mean that what we care about is what the other people care about. And sometimes those other people are the people who control the chips on the board. So, just making sure that we know what's happening, what's going on around us, and everything else is so key, man. So key, bro.
Right. A couple things come to mind. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you are now put in the category of the corporate monster, like you just are the bane of other people's existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something that is going on with you, and now you're the boogeyman in the
Mm-hmm.
situation. If you ever find yourself in this situation, remember the person who tells the narrative first is usually
Mm.
the one who controls it.
Mm.
Find a way to express your own narrative first, right?
Bro,
Find a way. And that,
good job.
huh? Like, and that's different. I'm not going to be specific because that's different depending on who you are and what you do. But he who hits first is usually the strongest.
Bro, we're living in a world that the narrative, which a large part of it has been a lie longer than it could have ever been truth. Folks were calling black people, brown people, killers,
Savages,
lazy, savages, uncivilized
feeble minded, imbecilic
for for centuries,
for centuries, junk sciences.
right? And then that whole entire time of, let's say, 340 some odd years, it takes us until the crack era, the 1980s, for any of those things to get anywhere next to being true. But folks in power perpetuated that lie from the day from the day ships came across the Atlantic and they found folks who looked like us already here. Like the
They told
idea.
it first. They got to the narrative first, and now you have to reverse engineer what's already out there. So you come in,
Hmm.
take note, y'all. Now you come in to a situation where everything you do, once you get wind of the fact that you're the monster in this situation, right?
Hmm.
You got to reverse engineer everything,
Oh
right?
my, oh my.
That has already preceded you in
We
narrative
trying to
form.
start the day. You trying to start tonight,
Hey, listen,
man? Don't let these do. Don't let Jamal's tone. Do
listen,
not
man,
let Jamal's tone fool you.
and you got to be careful because the the corporate monster, like Frankenstein's monster, right? If y'all had to read that book in high school, Frankenstein's monster, in the end,
Hmm.
came back and turned into the monster that the
Hmm.
narrative preceded by killing the person that was in control, right?
Mm.
Even after saving the little girl by the riverside, I don't know, I might be mixing up the story,
Hmm.
right? So the townspeople came and wanted to enact
Hmm.
some type of justice on the creation of the monster. And the person who told the narrative in the end was the one who became the victim of of the same narrative that they imposed on somebody else, right? But you got to be careful because, especially in these corporate environments, right?
Hmm.
One of the things that I was taught about truth and lie is that in order for a lie to be believed, it has to be told over and over again, but it
Hmm.
cannot be proven. You can't prove a lie. If it's not true, it's not true. You can only tell it over and over and over again, right? Un- until people start to buy into it and believe it. But the truth about a situation can be proven literally in no limit of time, right? If it's fact, it's fact. If Jamal is a bad guy, then where's the evidence, right? Show me. And see, if there's anybody in leadership that's listening right now, and your ear is being finessed, right, and your attention is being molested by a narrative that's being spun early
Hmm.
and often, right? That could be very influential in a situation where you're the leader and you have to make decisions about people, places, and things, right? There's money and stakeholders tied to these decisions. You have to go with the facts. Now, I know I've seen a lot of leaders, irregardless of the fact, pay attention to the aggregate and say, you know what, this person may or may not be what they're saying. However, it's impacting the whole team. So it's easy for me to make a decision over one person than make a decision over the whole team, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
that decision is at the detriment of somebody who's being made out to be the corporate monster, whether the story and the narrative is true or not, right? Leadership has to make a decision, right? Do I get rid of one person or do I get rid of 10? It takes a special person in
Hmm.
leadership who's service minded to go in and clear up and use objective facts to make decisions. And see,
Hmm.
this is where a lot of leaders draw the line, right? In their leadership philosophy. A lot of leaders in my experience choose when the office and the interpersonal politics come to play,
Hmm.
they usually go with the majority. Very rarely will a leader take the necessary time to unravel the tangled web of the narrative to really see the truth and correct people where it is necessary for them to be corrected. right? Because remember at the top of the show, we said we really ain't qualified to be anybody's judge, right? And we all have jobs to do, and the results matter, and how we get to it matters. But if there's a huge narrative and somebody's being isolated and singled out, it takes a special
Yeah.
leader to care that much that the person being singled out may not necessarily be the monster. They may actually be the victim, and then correct and reprimand the group. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna happen very often. So it's up to the individual, right, to understand that a narrative, be it untrue, can only be told over and over again where people start to submit to that being fact.
Mm-hmm.
But facts and truth and objective results can be proven in no limited time. So keep track. Keep track of your stuff. Keep track of your impact. Right? That's tip
See,
number 2. What you think, Rob?
see, I struggle with that though, right?
Okay.
Because in theory, right, that is a infinite percentage correct. Like that is so accurate that it's no need to say anything else. But it's only in practice that I'm reminded that there can be a lot of hurt and harm in the time frame between the lie being told
Right.
and the truth coming out.
Yep.
And that piece right there is what we'll always struggle with, where you go to work and people have this particular narrative about you that is not accurate, and they also don't care about finding out the truth.
Right.
So now you're stuck in this place of trying to fix things and then also hoping that someone else will fix them for you. And that day just might never come, at least at that place of employment. So I know there can be some folks who will hear that and be like, man, that sounds, I don't know, it sounds cool, but how long might that could take a long time. So
What?
so for me, I'm like, you gotta hold both though. You gotta process this truth. The truth shall set me free,
Right.
but I just may not be here to see it.
Which brings
Right?
me to tip. Which brings me to tip number 3.
Okay. This dude, he set me up, y'all.
No, we on the
Hmm.
same page.
Yeah.
Tip number 3: leave.
Hmm.
Now, leave may mean quit and get another job. Leave may mean,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm leaving this alone. And my absence, right?
Hmm.
And removing myself from the equation, whatever that means to you, will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt if the narrative is true, right? Just like just like you know, growing up in Atlanta, one of the things um that kind of spooked us out, you know, in the 80s as a young kid was the Atlanta child murders. And
Hmm.
they arrested a man um, for unrelated um, felonies, right?
Hmm.
And incidents, murders. Um, and because the actual Atlanta child murders stopped, or the law enforcement and the media stopped reporting about missing and murdered children when he was arrested,
Hmm.
the actual um, total number of missing and murdered children was pinned on this gentleman, even though he was not ever convicted of
Yeah.
those crimes, right?
Hmm.
Um, but his absence from the equation drew out variables and factors about the case that speak
Hmm.
to his innocence,
Yeah.
regardless of obviously it being pinned on him. What is it? What do
Yeah.
I mean by something being pinned on you? It's the narrative. Oh
Yeah.
man. So the the situation stopped when this person was removed from the equation,
Hmm.
right? So it had to be him.
Yep.
But
Hmm.
given an amount of time
Of time.
when you remove yourself from the situation, to
Yep.
Rob's point, the truth, so more times than not in these corporate environments will come out. If you're getting blamed for
Yeah.
stuff and you remove yourself, you quit, you transfer to another department, you get fired, you know what I'm saying? I've seen people get promoted out of these bad situations where
Hmm.
they were blamed for it, and the problem still exists in
Yeah.
absentia.
Hmm. Yep.
Proves, right? and,
Hmm.
and silently, like without a doubt, like, okay, oh, so I'm the problem. All right, so let me pull back, right, and see if the problem still exists. Um, and um, this may be what you need to do, um, in order to get some clarity and process what actually has happened. But I've been in situations, Rob, where I've been categorized as the corporate monster. I'm removed from the equation and the situation gets worse. I'm talking about people have called me, shared newspaper clippings. Literally, I've been in situations where I was the bad guy, but get removed from the situation, and then there's a newspaper clipping, or there's an incident, or there's something irrefutable that happens. I had nothing to do with it no more. I'm not eating over there no more. Right? That comes out, and see, this is where corporate trauma comes in. You may not feel like you want to stomach the idea of being removed from the situation, be it out of fear, be it out of stress, right? You don't have a backup plan. Last week we heard from Kenji again, the money side of corporate trauma. You may not have subscribed to that. You don't have no financial insulation to provide yourself physical and mental freedom in a corporate environment. Like, so you may not be able to process and stomach. Like, I just got to get it. I got to distance myself from this situation, because when I do, especially because the narrative is false, the truth is going to come out, because I'm not there no more. Right? Don't expect no apologies though. People not gonna come. People not coming back, Rob. People not coming back and just be like, you know what? It wasn't you. It wasn't you, Jamal. That's not. Don't expect that to happen. Well,
Yeah.
that may be my pain speaking.
You know what I'm saying? But isn't that crazy? People speak loudly for what was proven. People speak loudly for what they believe to be true, and then are quiet for what they know is true. Right? Right? Because I'm saying, like, when you really think about that,
Right.
like when somebody gets it wrong, people think you commit a crime. Your whole entire history will be in a newspaper. People think you stole from the store. They will post your face on the front of the store and say he's not welcome in here. And then when they go back and they realize that they was wrong, only thing changes is the picture comes down.
That's it.
Nobody knows why the picture went down. Your character has been tarnished. People look at you sideways when they see you. That person, and the crazy thing, sometimes you don't have to go out on the podium and take accountability, but do right by the person. And I hope that at some point in time, society gets to a place where when you take what is non-refundable from people, money isn't enough to
Mm,
repay. So if you take 20 years of somebody's life from them
mm,
and you were wrong,
mm.
to give a person $5 million, is not a justification when you can't count how many days that person has left. I may only get the chance to spend $700 out that 5 million, right? But I gave you 20. I gave you 20 years of my life. You gave me 5 million when I got out, and I got the chance to spend $700. I got hit by a bus, God forbid, right? But you look at those things, and society is like, well, at least he got the money.
Mm,
What do you mean? You got 20 from me.
mm,
And that's the piece where when people are like, Rob, you always talking about you or just leave. You don't leave places that you feel as if are worth you fighting for. Because to stay is about you giving your time. And if you're going to stay, that means you feel like it's worth it to give your time, right? You don't fight for relationships that you know are not worth your time. You get up out of there. I knew he wasn't the one. I knew we wasn't going nowhere. She wasn't it. That's your fault.
mm,
Because at some point in time, you decided that dealing with this person was worth it. You decided that staying at this job was worth you giving your time. They cannot give you back your time. They'll make $1 tomorrow. So that's something that sticks out to me when we
yeah.
think about it. Whoever painted you out as the bad guy and then realized you weren't the bad guy, you will never be brought back up. Nobody will speak about you again, period. They may even still try to say that, yeah, but he was still a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And done. So
Right.
wait. All the stuff that just happened that you said was because of him, we know it's not because of him. Oh yeah, but he was a bad guy anyway. But the
Right.
reason you were on him, on his back, beating him down, is because of the things that we found out was because of someone else.
And the
Now
only
you're
thing,
trying.
and the only thing that he did bad
Yep.
was the response
Yeah.
to the narrative.
To your effery.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and the response is the effect, but the cause is that corporate monster narrative that had to be survived. And for y'all that's thinking, well, damn. All right, you say remove yourself from the situation. We got three tips here. He who runs the narrative first will be believed more than likely
Hmm.
most, right? So start to create your narrative and keep track of your stuff and put it
Hmm.
out there some kind of way, depending on what's
Hmm.
relevant to you, right?
Yeah.
Under tip number two, understand that the narrative only can be told over and over again until people start to believe it, but the truth of the matter can be proven at any point in time. And then number
Hmm.
three, you may need to leave and remove yourself out of the situation. That may not necessarily mean getting fired or quitting your job. That just
Yeah.
means not allowing yourself to be a part of the equation where the narrative can now be spun, right?
Hmm.
But the most intuitive question that we run into is, all right, well, when do I know when it's really time to leave? One of the tips, and this is tip number 4, right? One of the tips I heard recently, when you start seeking information just to complain, especially as a result of a poor
Hmm.
narrative that's being spun about you or being
Yeah.
expressed about you, you probably want to think about leaving.
Yeah.
When you're seeking out
Yep.
information to complain, like I want to be very clear, very specific, right? You're not doing your
Hmm.
job no more. You're collecting data to complain about the situation because of the
Yeah.
narrative that's been spun about you. You
Hmm.
can't come back from that. Because
Mm.
it's too easy for things to get conflated. The
Mm.
narrative is bad, and now you complain, right? It may be time to totally back out of this situation, uh,
Ooh. Ooh.
Because in the
Mm-hmm.
immortal words like LeBron James, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, right? You mean to tell me you ain't never gone nowhere and changed places before? Oh, Jamal, that's easier said than done. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know it is. That don't mean
Mm-hmm.
that ain't the answer. I know personally that is very difficult at a certain point. That don't mean
Not I. Not I. Not I.
says
Not
the
I.
millennial.
No.
Not I, says the millennial, right?
Not I. Nope. I
So
see when I look at folks in the eye and I see nonsense and I smell nonsense and I taste nonsense and I smell it again. I don't try to put lipstick on a pig. I
nope.
let it oink. I let it oink by itself.
Yep.
I like, but you know what, Domo? I'm gonna be honest with you. That is deeper than work. That's deeper than work. And I'm gonna just say this because I can't help but say it. We as a people are in that situation every day. And just because we have more right to be here than anybody else that came across on a boat because we helped to build it, doesn't mean we should keep sacrificing generations and generations of people to get this place right. Because by the time we get it right, they may be ready to burn it. Like, we just probably need the process. Because what you just said, as soon as you said it, that's the first thing came out. I said, man, we over. Isn't that
Really.
what we doing? Like, isn't that what we be doing? Like, yeah, man, Marcus
Be
Garvey
time
probably
to,
had it
might
right.
just be time to do something else.
Marcus Garvey, he had it right.
Might just be time to do something
Just
else.
whole diaspora, get in our spaceships.
Right. And y'all may be thinking, yo, this don't have nothing to do with corporate trauma. Yes, it do.
Yes, it do. It does.
Our places of employment just becomes another arena for us to enact our traumas out on one another.
Right.
So,
You you know why you're the goat. You know why you're the goat because you have this strange way of doing some of this stuff, right, bro? When we process the first major industry, first big time industry, first big time money making industry, and the tools that were used, our bodies were there. So when we talk about corporate trauma and we talk about historically the lies that connected to that workplace are perpetuated throughout the whole entire system
to this day, in the
till this
immortal world
day.
of Deontay Wilder,
To this day, right? So when we process, when we really think about that, that idea that, you know, just because we want things to be a certain way, they shall be, but only if it was beneficial to everyone would it be like that. And I think sometimes that's the piece that, many of us miss as we try to push this nation towards being what folks believed it could be. And that's the piece that trickles through all of corporate America. And that's the piece that we don't think about. If all corporations are a collection of people, and those people perpetuate certain things within that corporation, a country is a large corporation. And that country and those people who make up that country perpetuate large things. And just like all businesses, And just like all businesses, everybody in the business isn't bad. Everybody in the country isn't bad, and everybody in the country isn't horrible. But if the culture of the business, culture of the country, is okay with standing on the backs of other people and not properly compensating them, not properly showing them the proper love and respect for their sacrifices,
Their value.
their value. And the value is not just what you perceive to be their value. Their value is what you both agree to. And at the end of the day, and that still may not be enough because a lot of times those who are in power still control those negotiations. But
Right.
what you accept and what you agree to, then cool. But the idea that people who put up their money, right, are more valuable than people who put up their time, that is the that's the piece that has been consistent since slavery. Because folks value people who put up their money over people who put up their time.
Mm.
Whether you were made to put up your time, right? Because if folks value you,
Mm-hmm.
not monetarily, but
Mm-hmm.
truly value you for what you sacrifice, then this whole entire thing looks different. And what's the one thing the internet is always saying? Make money when you sleep. Make sure you're doing this and maximize your time.
Right.
Look at the big businesses. Look at all these folks. This is what they do. Yeah, well, somebody's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's giving their time that they don't get back so that
Right.
somebody else can do all of these different things. So until we can get to a place that we value our time and time is valued by those who are offering the cash, bro, we always gonna have trouble.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Always. Yep.
Always. And you might be thinking, well, where, I mean, how did we get here? Well, let's bring it right back. This is why people work 20, 30, 40 years, sometimes even 50 years within the corporate industrial complex, look back on their career and have little to show for it, can reference little time that they lived outside of the work, right? And don't live much time past retirement age and whatnot. And you may say, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, corporate is just a group of people who are legally recognized as one entity, and trauma is a negative or painful experience that you cannot create or manipulate coping mechanisms to get past. So when you think about it, it's like you're experiencing it for the first time because your body and your mind can't tell the difference. Now, when you put both terms together, corporate trauma, and you reference or cross reference your authentic self, and like Rob always say, the fact that you left your heart at home, right? And the person that you turned into in order to survive this corporate or corporate industrial complex experience, corporate trauma experience. That is an example of the realization that experiencing pain, the stress, the fear, the anger, the frustration, the anxiety, depression, and cognitive dissonance all over and over again. So now you have a pattern of behavior that starts over each and every time you are triggered in this way professionally. And this is as American as apple pie. So this program, these discussions are designed to expose these different aspects based on what we see and what's already um, included in the corporate trauma conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really mirroring current events and things that we think that it's important to talk about so that we can level up.
Mm-hmm.
We got to level
Talk
up.
it. Yep.
Got to level up, right? Especially, especially us, right? Corporate trauma
Mm-hmm.
is the equal opportunity experience, but it has a very, very uh, significant sweet spot for the underserved, the underrepresented, the Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? Um, because corporate trauma is the white supremacist construct that
Mm.
a lot of this stuff comes out of that Rob so eloquently talked about. This is how everything started.
Don't
So
get it twisted. And don't get it twisted, man.
you may like,
Don't get it
I'm not black,
twisted.
all, what I mean, how does this relate to me? Well, you still are you are still manipulated by that narcissistic stone cold logic that the corporate industrial complex operates and is built on and continues to operate on.
Mm-hmm.
Like my friend, I got a friend I went to college and he lives in a Commonwealth state, and there's only three of them, so you can figure out which ones. And he has a car, and in a lot of what happens in Commonwealth states, you get taxed on owning your car. It's called an excise tax. And
Mm-hmm.
he paid his excise tax, and this is my last point, right? He paid his excise tax, and then the municipality that he lives in sent him another bill. He said, "I already paid this," but the new bill said, "Well, your car, because of inflation and everything that has happened recently in the economy, has increased in value. So we need to tax you on the increase in value of your car, which is, in fact, a depreciable asset.
That's it.
It depreciates, but because of inflation, right? What is going on with
That's it.
car values because of supply chain issues? Um, they can't manufacture new cars because they can't get the parts, the computer chips over here, and to make
Mm-hmm.
things function because of what's going on in the ports. People's older cars that actually are losing value because of the planned obsolescence that they build the cars with, meaning they only build these cars with parts that are scientifically engineered only to last a certain amount of time. So because you can't build new ones to replace the old ones. Now the old ones is worth more money, and because it's worth more money, I have to pay more in tax. He said, Jamoul,
Sad.
the devil is a lie. See, that's that narcissistic, nonsensical stuff that we have to deal with that we just accept.
That's sad.
It really is. And
Wow.
you have no leg to stand on if you say, you know what? Yo, I'm gonna argue this because the car I still have it didn't get newer. It
Yeah.
got
We,
older. Like y'all ain't. I mean, if I walk into a dealership and say, "Yo, this car is worth more than what you value it," y'all not gonna
yeah.
listen to me just because I say it. But now you want me
Yep.
to listen to you because you say it? No, no, no. Come on now.
Yeah. That's sad.
It really
That's
is.
sad.
And so, and I just use that as an example to highlight what we accept every day in this narcissistic corporate industrial complex, right? That
Mm-hmm.
started with junk science, pseudoscience, and lies that put bodies in the way to be sacrificed to build an economy that today we can't even get beyond this pattern of corporate trauma behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope
Mm-hmm.
you enjoyed this conversation. We did corporate monster and the importance of controlling your narrative. Remember the tips
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, and 4. If you don't remember them, rewind it. Right? Hit us up. We'll talk about it. Remember what is corporate trauma. The book preview is out right now, hit us up if you
Hmm.
want to check out your preview of what is corporate trauma, a new name or an old condition. Um, full book will be out in a couple of just say a couple of. Well, I won't say a couple of what, but it'll be out in a couple.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for DEI strategists, consultant,
Hmm.
coaches, anybody to come in and talk about these issues that may be uncomfortable, look us up, hit us up. Me and Rob, we got you. Um, and let's remember that corporate trauma is a sneaky, passive trauma that will creep up on you. And when it does,
It is time to level up.
see y'all again later.
Peace. Later.